our generation is misinformed.
Well, I guess there's not much disagreement on this, is there?
No. I mean, there's different ways we can interpret why.
Yeah.
You go
Well,
Yeah. I think a lot of what goes on in the media, it leads people to believe in a certain more left-wing direction than a lot of I'm not going to say people were more informed back in the day, because obviously technology helps us know a lot of things, but it also leads us down rabbit holes that make us believe more of what we personally already believe, so it can help hurt us in how informed we are about things that are actually real rather than
Yeah, I agree. I think the whole pipeline thing, just in general, I think there's like a very strong right wing and left wing pipeline online, where you can sort of get sucked in and get it's very easy to become an extremist these days. So
Technology just moves so fast, especially with all of the social media platforms the youth has access to, like Instagram and TikTok and any sort of real platform. Swipe, 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 swipe. More and more media gets loaded into the brain, and more things for people to interpret. So there's a lot, but it also moves so fast that many people can take it out of hand. So I really do agree with you.
Yeah, and I think the fast-paced nature of that can lead people to not second guess it when they see something. Like they'll see the title of an article and make assumptions off of that rather than reading it and researching.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in this age of globalization, that there's so many buzzwords thrown out about war and politics that people get a very surface level understanding of things from pop-up news stories and whatnot, and assume that because of that they have a deeper understanding of things. And so what people are saying, I think that people develop a more extremist viewpoint, or just viewpoints that are misinformed or incorrect because they don't take a deeper look or outward thought about those stuff like that.
I think that our generation is informed because of how you talk about technology and how people don't research. They just, whatever they see first, they consume it, and that's their belief. It can be skewed in any sort of direction to how society wants to move forward, because as we've seen throughout history, whatever society thinks is what's the truth. In the 60s, people thought that being a homosexual was a bad thing, and that was the truth. Now being a homosexual is more accepted, so now if you're gay, it's okay. Given that we can skew our generation to whatever the society wants, because society is always going to be progressing in different ways, whatever the majority wants is going to be what the majority is going to be, kind of thing.
And that doesn't also just come into terms with, political standpoints and things like that as well. But I also feel like what I see most as a woman is body normativity, and what we see on Instagram with how people look, how their bodies look, and it makes so many people want to conform to the body standard, which therefore corrupts insecurity and all these things muster in the youth. So as a young woman, that's basically all I see that just is put apart from anything political is body standards.
Yeah, it takes away the whole confidence of the human being being able to be comfortable in themselves and be confident at going and have this kind of strong person standpoint of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And also with how easy it is, everything's going through technology.
Right.
So how easy it is for whatever company is in charge of all that technology to decide what they want to be the truth. It's so easy to just silence opinions just like that. Right. So they can decide what the truth is and what headlines people are getting, and that can just inform people so much or misinform people.
My parents influenced my political beliefs.
I'll start off with this one. So, I feel like political beliefs don't always just come from what your parents' political beliefs necessarily are, but also the values they instill in you. My parents care a lot about personal responsibility and will and person, and just more so about personal aspects to you, and that's kind of influenced the way I see the world, and that in turn has influenced my political beliefs. But also I do agree with some of the views of my parents. So
Yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of what's shaped my political identity is the fact that I was raised as a Catholic, so religion's definitely very important to my political identity, and I'd search beyond all else really in politics for like what is the moral option, what would be like what God wants in a certain situation. So a lot of that, obviously, religion was instilled on me by my parents, so that really helped to shape my political views in line with theirs.
Everybody is influenced by their parents, whether they like it or not. Even if, let's say, your parents are super, super Catholic, you'll be pushed to the church every Sunday. You'll be dragged into it. It's gonna drag you away from the church. In that aspect, you're still gonna be affected. Your political views are still gonna be affected by your parents. Parents are the first source of information that we truly have as humans. They are the first ones that teach us values, that teach us religion, they teach us political standpoints, views, how we treat other people. Whether you like it or not, you're going to be influenced by your parents, and that's why I think that it's very important for parents to have a good, solid ground to rely on before they have children, so they can install views and they can make people a good part of society instead of whatever they want. Because at the end of the day, if you give any human, no matter how old, how young they are, especially how young they are, if you give them total freedom, maybe they'll find themselves, but you're gonna create someone that's gonna be more dysfunctional in society than is gonna bring more value in society.
I don't like that.
I'm bug.
I don't like.
So I would like to say that I agree with a lot of that. I think that what you were saying is that from an early age, if you're told something and it is instructed to you that it is going to become a big part of your life and you are going to mimic a lot of those beliefs. So I look at it more as the standpoint of, I don't think that parents have zero effect on it whatsoever, but I think that there are a lot of other like things that affect that. In a sense, I can't really get into it without getting super personal, but like there's a lot of breaking away, and like in the sense of once you kind of get to a certain age, you start looking into a lot more political stuff and you start to break away from the leanings and the beliefs of your parents and such. So I don't, like I said, I don't necessarily think that it's zero influence whatsoever. I just think that it is a lot more about the individual.
I was raised as an Italian American Catholic, so I'm with you. But that actually, instead of, helped me become the person who I am, deferred me from that. I was, put through a lot as a child when it came to my parents and my authorities pressing things onto me. So when it comes to how your parents influence you, I could honestly say that it was sort of the opposite. They influenced me in the way that your parents didn't, where their opinions and their beliefs kind of ricocheted off me. Because when I, sort of became more aware of who I was and what purpose I would have in the world as, a young person, I was like, the way that they are trying to push these things onto me scares me, and I don't want to end up like that. So just a little background on why, as a Catholic person, I am not, I don't affiliate that with my political view.
My parents, they put a lot of effort when I was a kid into not raising me and forcing me into any political stance, any religion, anything like that. And they wanted me to be able to develop those feelings on my own and decide how I felt. So I think that unique stance to raising me definitely left more of it to my own exploration than to their shaping.
But wouldn't you say that even when they don't push you towards a certain thing, that could foster an ideal of individualism, so that could play a role in the definition of your political views, things like that?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I just didn't interpret the question that way, but that's definitely...
Everybody's parents influences them somehow.
Yeah.
But some people really just stick with their parents' beliefs and tend to embody that. And that's okay. But, some people just learn to adapt different stories.
Yeah, so I would say that it's not necessarily that parents don't influence it, it's just that parents aren't the de facto. You can't look at the parent and then be assured on what their child's beliefs would be.
Moderates are the solution.
I feel like our country is kind of pulling us in a lot of different directions, and moderates does not necessarily imply everything is everything is down the middle pragmatic, it can mean a lot of different things, but it's more so it's not this like sharp division, I feel like. Especially like with like I feel like people are purposely polarizing their views more so to like let's say like right wingers will see something left wingers are doing and like okay we have to believe the opposite of that, and like left wingers will see right wingers something like vice versa, you know. Generally stances should be more moderate, but also it's more so like a unity thing, because I feel like we're just too divided as people.
I would like to say I very much agree with that. I think that polarization is the biggest threat to political unity and overall unity in our country right now. And like what you were saying, like left wings will hear right wing opinion and automatically say that is I have to be super opposed to that and that it's a personal attack to me. And the same thing is true and vice versa with right wingers to like left wing opinion that is a super personal attack. And I think again true that like people hear moderate and they think like watered down or filtered, and I think that it's not that you don't hold strong opinions, but you just hold a bunch of weak opinions, and that's not necessarily true. It's just that you don't hold super strong partisan opinions, and that you hold strong opinions, they just don't necessarily fall into either camp.
Yeah.
As 16 and 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds even, we're young, and like our whole lives, basically, since the time we could understand and comprehend things, we've heard of Republican and Democrat. That's what I believe. And honestly, the whole, two-party system that we live in has divided our people so much that, like, even the youth are, like, incredibly involved in that. The youth have to pick a side, which I think is, like, incredibly hazardous. You're young, you're influenceable, and when, just like in our last topic, when these things are, like, pushed onto you, it like makes you feel like you have no choice sometimes. You know what I mean?
The big majority of Republicans are currently in the primaries voting for Donald Trump, who is definitely not a moderate.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that the solution to solving our political troubles in America is turning towards somebody who's more moderate. Like, even if obviously I still want Republican policies to be implemented on a national level, but if we put it in more moderate hands, that will make compromise a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're entrusting it in somebody who's very ideological, then that is going to discourage compromise. It's going to discourage unity. And at the end of the day, that's going to tear the country apart and not do any good for us.
If you look at it from a sense of like social contract theory, in the sense that you give up the protection of some rights so that the rest of your rights can be better protected, in that same sense, like it is better to give up some of your weaker belief sets so that your stronger belief sets can be better implemented and better protected. And I think that only really works if you are going with a more moderate and less divided choice for a political candidate.
That's fair. Yeah.
I agree with a lot of what you were saying. I think there's definitely a lot of flaws with the two-party system, because I think people are feeling so pressured to pick one side either way. I don't necessarily think the answer would be to have a more moderate party only. I think we need just more parties in general that can represent people's views more accurately. And we see countries like Canada, like they have 8-something political parties, and they're not as divided of a nation as we are. I think splitting it up more and letting people express their opinions on all sorts of sides, and giving those people who feel like they have to vote one way because that's the one that most aligns with how they feel, like an option that is definitely more accurate towards their personal opinions.
I come from a third world country called Ecuador, and in my country, it's a Catholic country. I would say, if my memory doesn't fail me, it's 96% of the population is Catholic. It's what you consider Republican. And I think I'm not saying that extremes are good, because extremes can lead to terrible things. As even in the church, as a Catholic, it has led to the Inquisition, the witch hunt. It's led to terrible things, yes. But I don't think that generalized like moderation of we shall accept a couple things and accept the other things. I think that from a religious standpoint, even if you don't agree with, let's say, 2 things in the Bible or the church, if you call yourself a Catholic or a Christian, you accept all the what you believe are flaws and what you believe are greatness of your religion. If I don't agree with something of the Bible, I'm still gonna practice it because I believe in God and Jesus and I believe He is our Savior. By this, I mean that in Ecuador, it's a very, even though it's a very poor country and it's economically it's a disaster, socially, it's a very, very happy country. It's a very united country. Everybody's family. Everybody talks to everyone. Everyone's their neighbor. Everyone's their cousin, basically. It's a very united and whole country, which is one of the biggest parts that shocked me when I came here. Because you would think that, oh, everybody has like their own opinion, everybody can give their own kind of feeling, everybody should be happier with each other. It's completely the other way around. In my country, all of us are Catholic, we are all united as one, we are all under one, and we all work as a group to take the country forward, even though we might disagree in some areas. Yes, there's always disagreement in the human race. As a country, we are completely more united than the United States, and it's not because we have 16 different political views, but it's because we have one that strengthens us all.
I feel like that's kind of outside of the political spectrum, though, because that's like Ecuador's a smaller country, and it's a less diverse country in general. But when a country is larger and it's more diverse, that just naturally breeds more conflict. I agree, like it does kind of the social aspect and the political aspect do kind of come intertwine a little bit, but I feel like it's a little bit of a different situation.
I definitely say that I'm in favor of a lot of people turning to religion more so than there is in this country. That being said, what you were talking about in Ecuador, religion is something that ties a lot of the country together, and what we're seeing right now in America is there's a lot of things that, due to the two-party system, tear us apart, and that's why I think that moderates are the solution, because if we can have the political parties be less so a thing that tears us apart, then we can find more things that bring us together, like religion. And just, there's so many things that bring us together, but we don't see them truly in America, since we're so focused on the things that tear us apart.
I don't think I would want to be in a nation unified by religion, because my experience with religion has been nothing but negative my whole life. And I think there's this idea of unity, but there also comes a certain pain that comes with being forced to conform. When your whole nation is this way, you feel like you have to be that way, and maybe you say you're happy, but really deep down you're gay. You've been told time and time again you're being condemned to hell for your beliefs, or I don't know what exactly the Catholic belief is, but just people who are outside of the little box that's ideal, I think that would be hard for them.
Building off what Aaron was saying, is the United States is the third most populated country in the whole of the world, and is arguably the most diverse country in the entire world. There's so many different cultures from all across the globe coming here. Our geography and the way that our workforce is divided and our politics are divided is that we can't really compare ourselves to Canada or Ecuador because we are so diverse and so plentiful in the amount of people. And for that same reason that, we can't really have a two-party system, it's because there is such a discrepancy in wants and needs and beliefs between all these 350 million people, is that it is a unique situation that doesn't really exist in any other country. And so it's hard to compare it to a different thing or to try to make it conform to such a tight-knit system.
The Supreme Court's affirmative action decision this summer was good.
Is that the Harvard one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh. What was that?
So my personal belief about affirmative action, it was when it first came out, I think it was really good because of course it came out right after segregation got over and African Americans and many minorities all across America were being denied many rights, and affirmative action definitely helped them come forward and be given those opportunities that so many white people were accustomed to. But I think now we are looking at America, and I don't think many people are trying to deny African Americans rights, and I don't think that college universities especially since they're known as being more liberal, are looking to deny people rights and opportunities. So I think if somebody is qualified to get into a college, they will be accepted into that college, and a lot of the time racial identity can be taken into consideration in an essay. If their past experience is very important to them, they can bring that up, and I think that's the way it should be taken into the process.
I agree with this, as even given the different standpoint as an immigrant person, I am giving a lot of rights and a lot of opportunities that I have no real call for. Because of the color of my skin, because of the diversity that I can bring to a college, I can be more easily accepted than some other races, given that it is white people. And that is something that is completely unfair to certain groups. If I, as a person, I'm born with how I look, and because of that, college is gonna accept whether I'm gonna go into a college, even if it helps me, I still think it's wrong, because I would feel discouraged to go to a university that doesn't accept the best students, but it accepts the students that are best for them. That would make no sense, and it takes all value out of what college is and what a prestigious college is if you're just accepting people by how much they can favor you socially instead of what is the true strive for knowledge.
I think statistically there's still an extreme economic disparity between certain minority groups and white people in this country. And when you have more access to funds and you have access to better public schooling, you're going to have access to better education. So I think the argument that just the testing and being smarter on paper can 100% be a product of the environment you were raised in. And when people aren't given those same opportunities, they're not going to be able to learn at the same rate as somebody who's been given access to like top level education.
I think that I would lean more towards what you guys were saying, and I think that it depends upon the specific ruling, that it wasn't completely excluding race as a factor, but more how their character and how their upbringing would affect that. And I think that is like important in the way that our country is. Like up in Maine, which is a very like open place and a place that like where racial equality is more easily achieved, that it would make more sense to exclude that. But in a place like the Midwest, where gentrification is stronger and where there are less opportunities for minority groups, I think that is important. And by that same factor, I don't think that like you can really put that into law, that there are going to be people who find those loopholes and find their way around it. And so I think that it's important to say, look at the character and look at how that upbringing and their racial identity or other status, like other minority status, would affect how they might work and how where they have lived might affect them.
Yeah, I disagree with I thought the ruling itself was not a good ruling, purely because I feel like it's going to, while I do think affirmative action is generally a positive institution, obviously it can go overboard in some cases. Like it can be a little bit, like I feel like qualification matters overall, but I feel like the ruling itself is not going to be very effective in regulating affirmative action, because I feel like the colleges are still going to do what they were doing before. I think there's going to be very minimal changes, especially in private institutions, because they can just make the claim it had to do with that their decision had to do with the character of the individual, even though it didn't, because it's when that comes down to a matter of opinion, it's not really going to make a difference. So I feel like the ruling itself was just poor in terms of regulating what it was seeking to regulate.
I feel like, to your point, where you say that certain minority groups are growing up in underprivileged areas, I feel like that's a lot of the time when you go to colleges, what you hear is that they're looking more at a holistic review. And I think that is the solution to the problem that you're talking about, rather than affirmative action. Because if you look at affirmative action, you're still you're still lifting a group up when in reality what you want is people to be put on equal footings. And that can more be looked at if you did grow up in an underprivileged area, your school might not be given the resources, but the holistic review process will look at, okay, the resources weren't available to you. I understand maybe your SAT and ACT weren't as good, your extracurriculars weren't as good, but those weren't there for you. So that is the way I think you look at it. And a lot of what they do in essays is they can look at, like, what situation were you brought up in, what did you have available. I think that's the better way in order to look at these issues.
I definitely agree with that. I don't think that negates my disagreement with the Supreme Court's ruling. I think that's a great system, and I think I would prefer that over affirmative action. But I think we as a country need to take steps to implement what you were saying before we completely remove affirmative action.
I'm hopeful about my future in this country.
Can you repeat that?
I am hopeful about my future in this country.
I think that everyone can have a part to play in the country, at least if they, put an effort to do that. We all want to be involved, obviously, with the country, And so if you want to be involved, if there's a will, there's a way. So I feel like it's more so about like just the personal desire.
With the rise of technology, our generation has had a lot of access to a lot of things. We know all things from all sorts of sides because we see so much, we take in so much information. With that much information, I feel like, it's easier for our generation to formulate opinions and work towards what they want. Could that mean that, we're looking towards a 50-50 future? Maybe. I don't know. But what I do know is that our generation is very invested into their future, knows what they want, and is determined to achieve what they need to.
I think that in hindsight, what we see with every new generation is that we see an increase in our all social issues are becoming better, and that all people regard, especially if you look at minorities, that with every growing generation, rights are increasing, and there is a growing outcry for equality. And yeah, we've had a rough past couple of years, but if you look at things take a step back and ultimately look at the way that things are going, that we, especially us as a generation, are in one of the best spots that we have ever been in. Mm-hmm. We are look into this now, we are in the most open to free discussion, the most accepting of other cultures and identities. By the time that we are at the age of our politicians now, this country will be in an amazing state, I think.
What you're saying is absolutely right, and I'm on your side on this because I came forward. I think that the future holds a lot of good things, but also I think in our future if you look at us already now, there's a lot more mental health crises going on in the country, and there's a lot more division. And I'm positive that, or I feel positively that we can overcome a lot of those things given the direction we're going in. But I feel like in the short term, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. But I feel like by the time we're our parents' age, I feel like we've got a lot more opportunities, and we've got a lot more opportunity for good in this country.
Like you're saying, over the years, we've made a lot of progress as a country. Recently, I have seen a spike in lots of hate just everywhere. But I think generally we have been on an uptick, and I'm sure it's just because we're living in it now. We don't see in the 70s, maybe there was a time where, there was hate, but generally, we're moving forward.
Most of my friends have the same political beliefs as I do.
It was an accident. I don't know. I don't know. It's just kind of who I gravitate towards because, when you can agree on things, it makes friendship a little bit easier.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It wasn't necessarily on purpose that all my friends had the same political views as me, but I found that we hang out in the same circles, so typically we are aligned with each other. And my experience as a gay person, it's definitely, I don't have the option of being friends with a lot of people on the opposite side of the spectrum as me, because they hate who I am at my core, and I can't be friends with somebody who dislikes me, like as a person.
I would like to say that I have a lot of like different friends in terms of political views. Like, you know, I'd say you could probably split my friend groups fairly evenly, mostly. Like, in terms of like fairly liberal friends. You know, I have a lot of friends who would consider themselves left wing, but I also have a decent number of friends who would consider themselves more conservative. And so like it's kind of like all over the place, you know, but also those friends are in starkly different friend groups, and I could probably say that for most of those friends have like most of my liberal friends are probably friends with other liberal people, and most of my conservative friends are probably friends with other conservative people.
I feel like in a lot of like the media and the news and in society nowadays, people really like to force politics into pretty much every situation. And so it can be very difficult sometimes to want to have any type of discussion or enjoyment of something without it having to be like devolved to politics. And you see that especially on like platforms like social media. And so for me, I generally just like to take a step back and just find the people that I enjoy spending time with and that make me happy and that I appreciate and they appreciate me. And I don't really take political opinion into account for that, because I feel like unless it is super extremist, and it doesn't really have an effect on personality.
I am a Republican, and I am in theater. So
Yeah.
it's very
Yep.
difficult to find people around me that are aligning closely with my political beliefs.
Mhm.
I'll also say, I think on the left there's a lot more identity politics that goes on. And if you look at the identities that people fall in that like try and like forge friend groups, I really am in none of them. I am a white heterosexual male, so I'm really not forging any friend groups based off of I am any of those things, whereas I think some people on the left try and forge closer ties with people who follow into those set groups, whereas I'm just like, I like theater, it's a hobby. I like cross country, that's also a hobby, that's a team I'm on, and I just grow in friendships based off those things.
I mean, I agree with River when he said that, like, you know, all of their, you know, political beliefs have really become part of modern day society and part of like almost like just many conversations a person can have throughout their day. In that sense, you know, when people have views attacking mine, I want to feel safe around the people who I'm friends with. I mean, that's also just a personal thing. Like, I have like 2 friends, but like, also, you know, I tend to keep my, you know, I don't like purposefully make my political beliefs align with my friends or anything like that. It's just that I feel safe around those people to talk about things that concern me as a woman.
Yes, political views shouldn't just be the main standpoint of friendships. And I myself don't have many friends. I don't consider many people friends. I like to keep my circle between more than people that have similar views as me, to be more competent people. I don't like to be around people that aren't considered competent, and I know that can be really objective depending how you consider each person competent. And some of the people that I do hang out with are Republicans, are people that have a similar standpoints in politics, views, how you treat people, how you respond to other things. And that I believe that it's always going to skew people's opinion. Like you said, you want to feel safe talking about as a woman or as whatever you want. You want to feel safe knowing that the person's going to respond in a calm way instead of being like, oh no, that's terrible because you're this or you're that, or I think this. Yes, I enjoy having people with my similar views, but I don't think that drives my opinion to who I consider friends. Even as a very religious person and as a Republican, one of the people that I hold close to me as a friend is a gay man, and he's a really good friend, and I value him a lot as a person, because even though, yes, his beliefs don't go with mine, I still think he's a good person. I still think he should be respected as such. The respect you give to someone and how you treat them shouldn't be given just by their political views, but how much of a good person they are and how much of a person they truly are. Any person deserves respect. So it shouldn't just go with your political views or how you stand, but how you judge that person as a person, not as what they view.
I agree with that, especially in terms of respecting people who don't necessarily politically agree with you. But I don't think that needs to mean that I'm your friend.
Yeah, no, completely. Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
You shouldn't be friends with everyone just because everyone's your friend. And if you don't like my political opinion, that's completely fine. To each their own. Like he said, you're always gonna relate to someone that you're kind of like him with the clubs. He likes those people that unite through cross country, through theater. And my case, it would be with cars. I love cars, and I love most of the people that I meet through cars are really nice people. So having those connections, even if it's not politics, is always good.
All right, is that it?
Yeah.
Sorry.